policies, standards, procedures, and guidelines.
For documents that candidates blur together, and the exam is precise about the differences, because their status is usually what the answer turns on.
Here is the situation.
You ask to see the organization's rules on encryption, and you are handed 4 documents that contradict each other on the detail.
One says data should be protected. One names an algorithm.
One describes how to configure the tool.
And one recommends a stronger cipher. Which one actually binds anyone?
The first cut is simple. Which of these are mandatory, and which are discretionary?
3 of the 4 compel you. 1 does not. Getting that split right resolves most questions at this level, so let us place each one.
They form a hierarchy, from highest authority and least specific, down to lowest authority and most specific.
Policy sets the direction.
Standard fixes the specific rule.
Procedure gives the method. Guideline offers advice. At the top, the policy. A high-level statement of management intent. Broad, enduring, and mandatory. Sensitive data must be protected in storage and transit. It says what and why, never how.
Beneath it, the standard.
A mandatory, specific rule that supports the policy. Data at rest must be encrypted using AES 256. Specific enough to test, and binding.
Standards are where a policy's intent becomes a measurable requirement. Then the procedure.
The step-by-step method for carrying out a task in line with the standards. To enable disk encryption, do the following.
Mandatory in the sense that the task must be done this way, but operational rather than directional.
And at the bottom, the guideline. Discretionary advice and recommended practice. Consider rotating keys more often for high-value data. Helpful, not binding. The guideline is the one level that does not compel anyone. So, policies, standards, and procedures are mandatory, guidelines are not.
Now, why the levels are separated? Because this is a favorite exam scenario. A policy states enduring intent and rarely changes, which is why it sits high and is often board approved. A standard carries the specific value that technology forces you to revisit, an algorithm, a key length, a version. So the algorithm belongs in a standard, beneath the policy, where management can update it as cryptography moves on without reopening a board-approved policy. Put the algorithm in the policy, and you must amend the policy every time the technology changes. And the framework only works if each document is treated according to its level. A guideline enforced as if it were mandatory is a real finding, because it corrodes the whole structure. If a discretionary recommendation can get you disciplined, staff can no longer tell what is genuinely required, and truly mandatory standards lose their authority in the noise. So the exam uses this in 2 ways. When a question hinges on whether something is binding, the level tells you, standard, procedure, and policy bind, a guideline does not. And when a question asks where a specific value belongs, the answer is almost always a standard beneath the policy, so it can change as technology does. Carry this away. A standard is mandatory and a guideline is not, a policy sets direction and a procedure sets method. When the answer hinges on whether something binds, or on where a value belongs, the level is the answer.